Story 1. Former soldier and officer. It is a tough question. I think I would follow my instinct that invading Greenland is an unlawful order. I would not do it. But I understand that I might find myself in a court-martial as a result. Glad I do not have to deal with it honestly. This is assuming that this is an aggressive mobilization not authorized by Congress and not just stationing some additional troops at the existing base. Full disclosure, I have been out longer than I was in at this point. I would not say my opinion is representative of those currently serving. Story 2. The United States is going to lose a major base in the north if they continue to cause issues. No country is going to allow you to have troops in it when you keep threatening to invade it. Story 3. I work as a contractor at a military base that trains helicopter pilots. The most I could contribute is to quit my job. I would be replaced immediately, but I would feel better about myself. Story 4. Orders follow the chain of command. The generals would refuse to issue that order as it would be unconstitutional and violate multiple international treaties, including the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The president has no authority to unilaterally call for an invasion, and there is no emergency power situation that would validate any sort of military action. Story 5. Anybody who voted for Trump and supports the annexation or invasion of another country, thinking it will be good for the United States or good for the other country, is completely lost. Those people have completely thrown away independent thinking in favor of unconditional subservience to Donald Trump. You can be on board with some of his policies, but nobody should be okay with these ideas. Some Trump supporters are far too willing to blindly follow. You should not blindly support any politician. You need to judge and support them based on each individual decision they make because, no matter how good a politician might seem to you, they will still make some bad decisions from time to time. Story 6. U.S. veteran here, but not a legal expert. I don't see how ordering troops to invade an ally is anything but an unlawful order, which you can safely ignore per the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Personally, I would give him the finger and end up in the brig. Story 7. It would be a disaster. I think people assume that we would just form an army and invade like D-Day. The reality is that 200 soldiers there would immediately have to surrender, not to mention many European Union military bases being surrounded and locked down that have United States personnel in them. We take Greenland, so what? Do you think the public is going to tolerate the thousands of U.S. personnel, now potential prisoners of war, for nothing more than Trump's ego? I assume that all the military has been working around the clock to show him how stupid it would be to perform any military action against a North Atlantic Treaty Organization ally. Story 8. As a veteran, I am hoping that the officers refuse. It would be an unlawful order, and I am hoping there are enough officers with backbones left in the military to refuse to do what Trump says. Story 9. The United States might take Greenland, but imagine the geopolitical outlook and what effect it would have on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is gone. Maybe the European Union threatens to make a pact with China as they can't trust the United States. The New World Order would be gone. Every treaty on the planet would be up for grabs. The stock market would collapse as badly as the start of COVID-19. Trump wouldn't want to be blamed for all that. I think it is bluster and keeping people's eyes off his other moves. Story 10. Greenland is a tremendous place with incredible potential. Imagine the world's greatest golf course right here, with stunning views and the best facilities. It would be a fantastic investment, creating jobs and boosting tourism. Believe me, it would be the best golf course the world has ever seen. Story 11. Not a statesperson, but between Canada, Mexico, and Denmark, we should be escorting their soldiers to the borders and ejecting them. Yes, they will do the same to ours. A huge part of the United States force projection strategy on a global scale is the maintenance of bases worldwide in foreign countries. The loss of these bases would be a major hit. Story 12. The Americans do have a history of this kind of thing. In 1983, there was the invasion of Grenada, which is a member of the Commonwealth and had, at the time, Queen Elizabeth II as head of state. Apparently, Thatcher was upset, mainly because her friend Reagan didn't call and inform her about his plans beforehand. I also think of the coup that American plantation owners orchestrated in Hawaii to overthrow their monarchy, all to enable them to sell sugar without having to pay import taxes. Story 13. Many of my veteran friends have discussed what our red line would be. A US invasion of Greenland would be one of them. Hypothetically, of course, these thoughts hit differently with a family. Story 14, retired United States Army here. Being shipped somewhere with my unit would be absolutely unavoidable as you're nothing more than a cog in the machine. But I control the trigger of my weapon and I wouldn't pull it on Europeans for this orange clown. That being said, please keep in mind I am retired and my views may not reflect the current generation of soldiers. Story 15. I find it super hypocritical that America won't deny using force to take Greenland but starts raising their voice when China says they will do the same with Taiwan. Story 16. We civilian citizens better be out in the street protesting this en masse before we force our service members to make this decision. If we just sit on our seats watching television and playing Counter-Strike, we deserve whatever consequences we receive from the rest of the world for this. That said, I really can't imagine us conquering the territory of a European United States ally in a naked land grab. It boggles the mind and would mark the bleak end of the international order for the last 80 years and the complete loss of all soft power and moral authority the United States has accumulated over its entire existence as a country. Story 17, former Army here. I've been out longer than I was in now, so this likely isn't reflective of currently serving troops. But the point is that the soldiers on the ground don't have any real way of determining what's an unlawful order or not outside of the blatantly obvious. So any real opposition would have to come from the Department of Defense. With that said, something tells me an unjustified war of aggression against a North Atlantic Treaty Organization ally would be a bridge too far, and we'd see the Department of Defense refusing to carry it out. But I suppose we'll see the moral caliber of our military leadership if or when that order comes down. Story 18. I am more interested in what MAGA folks think of US troops dying in an invasion of Greenland, or the general idea of war with an ally that already works collaboratively to host a US base there and would have worked towards increasing security. Story 19. Oh, and just by the way, look at the disastrous results of the last two disastrous invasions, Iraq and Afghanistan. Decades later, trillions of dollars, and an untold number of dead and crippled American service members later, what do we have to show for it? The Taliban still running that situation, and an inept, incompetent semi-government trying to run Iraq. Getting into a war is easy, even the North Koreans can do it. Having a desirable and viable end state is hard. Story 20. This is just more craziness from the orange monster. But if this actually happened, for the first time in my life, I would be rooting for the troops fighting the United States military. Story 21. I am an Army Lieutenant Colonel in the retired reserve. Soldiers take their duties very seriously, and one of those duties is to refuse unlawful orders. Starting a war of aggression is unlawful under international law. Some soldiers may need guidance from senior officers to understand this. Now, those who study history understand that few wars are initiated because one country felt like attacking another. A pretext for war is almost always established first. Defending a country that has been attacked, reacting to an alleged aggressive act, or assisting a downtrodden minority facing persecution are popular pretexts for invasion. If this was the case, the president could argue that the United States was not initiating a war of aggression, and soldiers would be obliged to follow orders. Story 22. As a European, I think we should start keeping lists of United States soldiers that live off base in our countries, so they can be quickly detained if it ever comes to this. Story 23. Being part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, it would be an illegal war. Normally, the Joint Chiefs of Staff would refuse to enter an illegal war. But obviously, there is nothing normal left at the White House, so who knows? Story 24. Starting to feel like we need a treaty association called the National Organization for Treaty Accountability. Everyone except the United States could push back on the United States' increasingly aggressive unilateral actions. Story 25. If the orange turd leader actually ordered this, I'd guess you'd have soldiers defecting or at least protesting the order, including resignations from some number of higher ranks. You'd definitely have soldiers on board and down to go. But they are just sociopaths. It would depend on how it was framed. I doubt a Greenland is now ours, so we are going to wipe out the population order would go well. But as long as tensions don't lead to the European Union giving Trump a legitimate excuse in the eyes of his supporters, it's probably unlikely the military will go along with it. As much as the Orange Stain cosplays as Putin, I don't think he has the same level of control over the military as his idol. Story 26. Perhaps I'm a nihilist, but let's imagine the United States attacks a French base in Greenland. As the French nuclear doctrine states, they would shoot a nuclear missile at a part of the United States as a warning strike. The United States' automatic response gets triggered and launches back. Russia's automatic response gets triggered and launches too. So does the United Kingdom, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel. Best fireworks of our life. Next thing you know, in 50 years, Australia is the new world superpower. Story 27. I, Kim Chip 90, having been appointed an ensign in the United States Navy, do accept such appointment and do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. Story 28. Trump isn't going to do anything with Greenland. It's all a deflection to get people not focusing on a bunch of already unpopular things. Did people not learn his modus operandi from the last time he was president? He would say outlandish things all the time to deflect attention. Story 29. This post is very United States-centric. All I have to say is this: let's not destroy the United States-European Union bond because of a 4-year term. Both parties would suffer in the end, and it's exactly what other parts of the world are praying for. Sometimes the United States' feeling of supremacy comes off as arrogance. We need each other. Story 30. If there is a war for Greenland, do not expect it to be a ground war. No one is sending troops into Greenland to dig trenches. No one is going to war in the frozen tundra. This is a war of power. Story 31. That's Congress's job, not the president's. He has some power, but at some point, he has to go before them and justify everything he did, or it's deemed illegal. The president doesn't declare war, nor does he have the power to enact it. Story 32. You do not get an opinion. If you are ordered to fight in Greenland, you will be sent to Greenland. Your thoughts on whether or not that is a just or smart decision are not taken into account. Story 33. Wonder how much effort it would take to get the IP address of the ones claiming to be military here and claiming they will go against orders and start prosecuting. Story 34. The entire point is to deter China and Russia from the Arctic. So, if the European Union sent a ton of troops and supplies or systems, it would be exactly what the United States wanted without having to spend money. So, it is a win-win. Story 35. The military cannot be ordered to invade by the president. We have checks and balances, and there must be a reason for declaring war. We all know that authorized use of military force, approved by Congress, has been used to take military action in emergency situations for the security of America and its allies. In the case of Iraq and Afghanistan, for example, it was to topple harmful actors and was coordinated with an international coalition. So, can the president declare war or an authorized use of military force? No, these require the checks and balances of at least congressional approval. When authorized use of military force measures were approved, they weren't to annex countries either. So when Trump says he wants Greenland or someone thinks he can send troops there, the answer is no, not without Congress. And no, not with the intent of seizing a sovereign territory, especially not a founding member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Story 36. This is Trump's insane threats. Congressional Republicans, speak up. You're serving the country and the Constitution. You don't serve Donald Trump. Remember the oath you took? Was Trump's name in that oath? Story 37. As a veteran and an infantryman, the thing people don't see in the movie is that you cannot refuse a legal order on moral grounds. And if you do, aside from probably getting in trouble, you'll likely be thrown in jail. If the president orders it and no one in the chain of command respectfully disagrees, hoping for a mass refusal by rank-and-file infantrymen is going to be disappointing. Story 38. Realistically speaking, you are asking if they want to go to prison followed by a dishonorable discharge or death penalty, or go to war. They don't exactly have a choice. Story 39. That's a tricky situation, to say the least. The United States and Denmark have a long history of cooperation, and it's unlikely the United States would order an invasion of Denmark unless the situation was truly extreme or under some kind of geopolitical pressure. If it did happen, military personnel would likely follow orders, but there would be a lot of confusion and questioning about the justification, especially since Denmark is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization ally. Story 40. Denmark will have the other European Union countries at its back on this one. Cadet Bone Spurs does not want to push this issue, but he is stupid enough to try. I'm wondering if this is his convoluted scheme to pull us out of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization.